Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. All right, welcome into another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. I'm jacked up for today's episode. For those of you listening and watching, Ellen gave me 3 topics for today, or titles for the episode, and you got to just check these out because it frames the whole conversation. The first one was how to run a 6-figure business while living on a sailboat. Like, that had me excited. I don't know how you feel about it. The other one was how to generate more sales by following your intuitive guidance. Okay, pretty good. And then 3 steps to getting out of it, just making enough in your business. I mean, which one do we pick, right? So I may just title the episode all 3 and just say that I'm super excited. The sailboat one has me very curious. So we're going to dive into that. But no, this is a fun conversation we're going to have today. And before we dive in any further, let's welcome our amazing guest, Ellen. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
I'm super excited to dive into the sailboat thing, as I alluded to off screen or before we started recording. But we decided that your term that you go by is a life alchemist, and I want to dive into more of what that means and how you show up in the world and help people build businesses that they don't have to run away from.
Yeah, well, one of my clients used that term the other day and I really loved it. So I've kind of stolen it a little bit because it's really all about how you've been led into gold. You know, that's kind of the basis of alchemy. And really what I'm doing for myself and for others is taking the lead of the things we don't like, the things we're creating that we don't want to have so much in our life, and actually spin that and turn that into gold. You know, creating a life that is gold for us, something I call the lush life, that is exactly how you want to be living your life in the way that you want to be living it, with no expectations from yourself or anyone else as to how that should be. And when we're in kind of the lead, we're often living based on those expectations that we have in life, you know, based on conditions, assumptions, guilt, expectations. I call it the cage, CAGE. And really it's about stepping out of your cage and creating that gold for yourself, that lush life for yourself, and a business that supports you to do that, based on what you love, not based on what other people think you should be doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I talk to business owners all the time, as I'm sure you do, and it's a struggle. And they come to eventually, most of them hate what they do, resent their business. Full disclosure, in my last business that I sold, I was there. I hated it because it became something that was so far from what I designed it to be in the beginning that I just had to get away from it. And I'm sure you come across people like this, but I'm curious for you. Did you have that experience in your past? And is that what led you to this new way of building businesses?
Yeah, I think I was actually working in a corporate business when I kind of found out a lot about the premises that I'm working with today. And, you know, common, I guess, with a lot of people, I was successful in the career. I had the trappings of success, but I wasn't really feeling that fulfilled. And I was working all the hours, you know, I was doing good 50, 60 hours a week, never seemed to be enough, always felt like I should be doing something more. And I realized that I had just got very disconnected from myself and what I truly wanted. I was operating based on what I thought I needed to be successful, and not actually based on what I would truly love. So I started shifting the way I was operating. I started working based on my intuition more. I started working based on what brought me joy more. I let go of the ideas of what I should be doing and started doing things more that I loved. And what I realized was I was working a lot less. I was having a lot more fun. And I was being a lot more productive at work. And so actually I was enjoying what I was doing a lot more. I would knock off early on a Monday and I'd go to an ice skating class, and I'd do spin on a Tuesday, and I would leave early on a Wednesday and go to art class. And yet all my work was getting done, and I was still getting these accolades at work. But what I realized was that didn't really float my boat in terms of my purpose and what I wanted to really create in the world. And that's when I left my corporate gig and spent a couple of years sailing on boats and starting and building my business and creating a business very intentionally and very intuitively, in line with who I wanted to be and my values in the world. And I think you're so right, because people often leave their corporate job, and I see them do one of two things. We take ourselves with us. So they either kind of take themselves with them and they end up in their new business working just as hard with all the same challenges they had before, or they reject everything from their corporate career and they end up kind of floating around, but having no structure and making not much money. And so I've seen people do both of these different things. And by kind of operating more intuitively, by operating though with some structure and bringing the two together, you can actually create a business that you love, but with a lot of ease and effortlessness in it. As you know, I was in St. Lucia last week because I'd been ill. I decided I wanted to go get a week in the sun while I was out there. And I cancelled some things. I was like, I don't need to do that this week. Chill and recuperate as well. And that's what it's about, is creating a business that supports the life you want to live, which may not be on a sailboat, but for me it
is. For me, I can assure you it's not on a sailboat. I have a thing about boats, so I give you a lot of credit. But I'm curious. I mean, it's not easy to build a business. It's probably a lot harder to build a business in the middle of the ocean or any body of water for that matter. How do you go about doing that first and foremost, and then teaching other people to build businesses by, not stressing about all the things that you should do according to other people? I'm curious to dive into that story.
Yeah, well, there's kind of so excuse me, I'm still recovering. There's three elements, really, for a business. There's what you're doing, your delivery with your clients. There's finding new clients, and then there's kind of like the back office admin, accounting type stuff, right? If we could break it to the three simplest areas. And so, in terms of creating new clients, I've always done that very intuitively. I've let go of how I should create clients. I do things that are aligned to me. So I would find clients on sailboats. I would meet people on trains. I would sit next to somebody on an airplane, and wherever I went, wherever I traveled, I would get clients. I'd travel somewhere, and a friend would say, hey, well, could you just run a workshop for a few of my friends? And I'd pick up some clients, and they referred me to people who referred me to people who referred me to people. And so that's kind of how the business built. And then I would have a few days in a fortnight that I would work with clients, and then I'd be sailing for some of the rest of the time. So the kind of clients merged a little bit more around the sailing when I was traveling full time, and everything else just kind of fitted into the small spaces. And now, since I moved back to the UK and I've been living on my boat, that's changed a little bit because the business is bigger, I'm growing, I'm doing different things. So this summer I've organized to take 2 months off from the business so I can have 2 months to go sailing. So the structures will change over time because the business will change, the business will evolve. So it's about not holding on too tightly to it, but just continuing to remind yourself about what it is that's really important to you, and creating a business and a structure that supports that, and not assuming it's going to be hard. I think we assume it's going to be hard, so we have to do all of the things, and that creates it feeling like it's hard, rather than really connecting with what is true for us and most aligned for us, and then allowing that to guide us. And knowing that when we're in alignment with that, things will just come to us more effortlessly and more easily.
Yeah, it's such great advice too, because when we first talk to people, usually their business is in some state of chaos, and they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off, doing all these different things. And the advice that they've been given is just go outsource it, hire a VA. And our first question always is, do you need to do it? Like, why are you doing that activity in the first place? And it sounds like that's very much in line with how you've built your business, because it'd be impossible to take 2 months off from a business if you have your hands in everything and you're trying to just do. So how does that philosophy resonate with how you go about building your business and helping your clients?
So for me, it's about helping people tap into their own intuitive intelligence. So, we talk about our rational intelligence or IQ, we talk about emotional intelligence or EQ, but we don't really talk about intuitive intelligence. But it was Einstein that said, intuition is a gift and the rational mind a faithful servant. But we have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And so for me, I put structures in place so people can tap into their intuition and decide, of the 100 things they think they should be doing, what are the 3 things that actually are best going to serve them, and maybe it's not even in those 100, right? Because we have a tendency to, not trust ourselves. That's one of the ways people really get stuck, is they don't trust themselves. So they want the next guru to tell them what to do. And everyone's out there selling their right way of doing something, and there is no right way to do anything. But you sit on Facebook, there's all these ads, all these different right ways of doing something because it worked for that person. And then it worked for them and their business. So then they sell it to someone else. So you're sat there going, oh my God, I've got to do all of these things. I've got to be on every social media platform. I need to do YouTube. I need to do Instagram. I need to do this. Oh, now I need to learn about referrals. Oh, now I need to be writing articles. I need to be blogging. I need to do all of these things. And none of those people did all of those things. Yeah. And so for me, it's about, supporting people to really connect to the truth of them and go, what is it that's going to work for you, that you're going to love doing, that's going to support your business, and helping people hang out with the tension of not knowing, hang out with the tension of feeling like we should be doing everything, because I get it all the time. Like my cage, I call it, ego is telling me, hey, you should be doing all of these things. You need to get more clients. You need to be doing this. And whenever I get into that mode, then things just like slow down in my business. And when I step back from that and get back into just doing the things that I love, clients show up for me, and it's helping people hang out with the tension of being uncomfortable and continuing to do the things they're getting intuitively that can support people to make it so much, easier. Do it with ease.
Yeah, oh man. You, for those of you listening, you can obviously see that Ellen has written all of the scripts to my social media videos recently, because I say that all the time. I'm so frustrated with people online, the gurus, as you call them, just preaching these things that will never work for 95% of people. And it worked for them once, or maybe barely worked for them half a time, and they just try to make a quick buck. And it drives me insane, because then that person is left to clean up the mess. And I would argue that no person who is a guru has ever been on every social media platform at the same time. It's impossible. But we all think as entrepreneurs that we have to do that. Like we have to write 4 blogs a day and 17 TikToks and 3 Instagram reels. And it's like, you go crazy doing this. How do you balance the marketplace screaming at you to do that and the intuitive? Because I think a lot of people have blocked out the intuitive because the marketplace is so loud. So how do you get in touch with that?
So for me, it's about acknowledging, that marketplace, acknowledging everything, like acknowledging what you think you should be doing, just giving that side of you a voice. But it's kind of like the 3-year-old, that you strap in the passenger seat and then say, that's great, I'm listening to you, but I'm going to drive the car now, right? And then it's choosing to give yourself that space, whether it's meditation. I have a few intuitive practices that I share with people that allow you to come into a space where you can turn down the noise and choose to kind of tune in, if you like, to a new channel. Choose to tune into the channel of, what I call that human spirit, that spirit that's within all of us, that higher intelligence. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes. The more you give yourself that space to just listen and to receive, rather than to do. It's like, when we first started, remember like the old dial-up modems, if you're old enough to remember dial-up modems, it took forever to download anything. And that's kind of where we're at now with our intuition very often, if we've not been practiced. But the more you do it, it's like you get this 200 meg broadband line to your intuition, and then you receive it a lot more readily, a lot more easily. But it takes practice to do that. And everyone, people ask me, does everyone have intuition? Yes, everyone has intuition. You just may be more or less connected to it, or more or less used to listening to it, or also acting on it, because very often intuition will give us something, and the amount of times people say, oh, I knew I shouldn't do that, or I got that, but it didn't make sense to me, so I didn't do it. And that's the thing, intuition is never going to make sense to your rational mind, but if you get it and you follow through on it, it'll come to you more and more.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads me to the next question that got brought up in my mind, is like, you connect with it, you turn the volume up on it, however you want to phrase that. How do you trust it? Like when you are coming from the mainstream of, I need to do everything, be all things to all people, and then you finally quiet that thought, then the next most obvious thought would be, well, is that the right thing to do? Can I trust myself? Can I trust that this is the right thing? So what does that look like?
What I generally say to people is you won't trust it, until you followed it and you see the benefits coming off the back of it. Because if you wait to trust it, well, you'll never do anything. Yeah. So there is a leap of faith involved. I just kept following my intuition to, I was away sailing and I just kept getting to go to America and run a workshop, go to America, run a workshop, go to America, until I did it. And I ran a workshop and 2 people showed up, and I was like, okay, well, and then, but those people inviting other people, and suddenly I had this business, and then so many people come and go, hey, could you come and teach this to my teams? And it was just all of this organic, listening to the very next step. And so I have learned over the last kind of 9 years to listen to it, because I know it hasn't steered me wrong. But the first time it's like, really, so there is that leap of faith. And that's one of the biggest questions I get asked is, how do I know if it's my intuition or if it's like the voice of my ego pretending to be right? There's all of these different, and these different questions. And we start small in listening to intuition, and then we can get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that's such good advice. If the little voice is saying do cocaine so you can get more done during the day, like, that's not your intuition, probably speaking. But the rest, you can, safe to say, you can try it out and see what happens. But no, that's good advice. Okay, so I love this. I love really building your company based off your intuition, what feels right, because you'll obviously have more energy and more enthusiasm to run that business. But then I kind of look at the flip side of, like, this is easy, not easy, more simple for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs with a very small team. What if you've built a big business and you have 50 employees, and now you're starting to think this way, but there's 50 lives at stake? I mean, what does that process look like? Because you may have to rebuild your entire company. Is that a common thing that comes up with your clients?
Yeah, so I work with quite a few people in like bigger corporates. They're running organizations of like 50, 100, 200, 250 people. And I've worked with businesses that had like 70, 80, 90, 100, 200 employees globally. And it's not like everything changes overnight. Yeah, it's not like you suddenly go, I'm going from here to there. Maybe that's possible, but I do work with the premise that says, if it serves your highest, ultimately it's going to serve the highest for everybody else. And so if you get to switch your business and change it, if that really is the truth, if that serves you, that's going to serve the world. It's ultimately going to serve all of the employees as well. And then there's ways of doing that. And again, you could go, hey, I'm going to change my business, and then approach that very egoically. Or you could go, hey, I'm going to change my business, and approach that very intuitively in a way that's going to be of service to everybody in that business. So there's the way that you do things is going to change as well. But usually what I find is most people are very close to what they want to do. Very often I call it the shadow career, or the shadow business. It's close to what people really want, but they haven't fully stepped into and owned exactly what it is that they want to do. And I worked with a client recently. She did a few different things in her business, and working more and more intuitively, she came to realize actually what her real truth was, what her real purpose is. And so she's just dialed that up more and more in the business. And as that dials up more, other things will kind of recede a little bit more into the background. And I think that's what happens. So it's not always this kind of like major immediate shift, because generally we're close. One of my passions is teaching and development. And, I'd worked myself into a very safe version of that. I was running a training team for an IT corporate, and it was close to what I really loved, but it was the safe version of it, so it wasn't really filling the bucket. And so most people are like that. It's close enough to what they're doing that it's an evolution and a shift rather than a complete 180.
Yeah, and tell me if you observe this, because this is kind of what I've seen along those lines. When you take the safe, air quotes, safe path, it's actually more stressful and there's more fear than if you take that leap that you currently fear, because that's when you're free. Do you notice that as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I definitely do. Even there's days where things are difficult running your own business. I can just imagine being back in my old corporate life, and I'm like, oh no, I couldn't go back there again. But everyone's got a different relationship with risk, with fear, and very often people don't do that thing ever because they are afraid of what might happen, and that can hold people back a lot, because it is difficult to step out and do the thing that you really love to do. so much so that most people tell me, but I don't know what I'd really love to do, because it's so much easier not to know than it is to know and either not do it or to know and try it and feel like you're going to fail at it. So that's the biggest thing people say, but I don't know what I love. I don't know what I'd love to do as my business. And so there's a lot of breaking barriers down to get to the point where people are able to own and acknowledge what they love. And when they can get to there, that's when things, tend to happen quite magically in their lives.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And I'm a little disappointed we didn't talk about running a six-figure business from a sailboat, but I think we got there in talking about how to run a business that you enjoy going to, and a life that you don't have to run away from. So, Ellen, I want to thank you so much for coming and shedding light on this, because it's powerful and it's freeing to operate this way and run your business this way. So I'm curious, how can we get in touch if someone wants to take that next step with you? What is the next step, first of all? And then where can we find you?
Well, if people want to check out lushlifebusiness.com, there's a toolkit on there. If you just want to get started and check it out, there's a toolkit on there for free that you can access that kind of takes you through the practices that I use to run my business from a sailboat, that I use to run my business intuitively, kind of day on day. So you can check that out. And if you want to, you find out more, just go to bookacallwithellen.com, and we can have a chat about how some more intuitive structured practices could work for you and your business.
That's so awesome. Thank you for that. I was fully unprepared and I forgot to put your website on the screen, but for those of you listening and watching, it'll be in the show notes, so you can go check that out. I'll check out the toolkit and I will use it to run a business firmly planted on dry land. I will not use it to get on the boat, but that's just a personal issue, like I said. So, Ellen, thank you again so much. This is fantastic. Go get that toolkit. Go to her website. It's in the show notes, and make sure you subscribe. This was an amazing episode. I love bringing on guests like Ellen to share their stories and how they can help you grow your business. And that's what we're all about here. So subscribe, leave a comment, make sure you don't miss a minute of this ridiculous show. And we'll be back on the next episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Thanks for watching.